Hi everyone, I'm Mr. Myers and welcome to another episode of Mr. Myers Minis. Today we're going to be learning about how to plant from seed as well as how you can make your own soil at home. So one of the first things that you'll want to do when you're trying to figure out what plants you want to plant is what plants are going to be best to grow in your climate or your temperature zone that you're in. Today I've picked 3 plants that are pretty good for this. One of them is called borage, another one is a red California poppy, and then also we have the white linen California poppy. These all come up relatively quickly and they also self-seed, which is really cool. And when you're planting from seed, you can either sow directly into the ground or you can come up with a container that you want to plant your seeds in. I've come up with this planter container because I want these flowers to be self-contained and not to go directly into the ground. You can also come up with some compostable planting containers such as egg cartons that will allow you to sow directly into the ground, and those containers can actually decompose, which is pretty cool. But when you're planting in a planter such as this, the first thing you'll want to do before you obviously plant seeds is to make your own soil. You can either go to the store and buy pre-made soil, which is pretty easy, but if you buy some things in bulk, you can have a constant supply of how to make your own soil. So when you're making your own soil, one of the first things you want to do is to get some soil compost. So I'll take a couple of handfuls of this and put it into a bucket. And this soil compost will add some soil medium that will build your soil, but it will also add carbon into the soil as well. All right, that should be enough, and we can add more as needed as we go along. Now the next thing you'll want to do is you'll want to have a way for the soil to be aerated. One of the best things for this is something called perlite. This perlite is basically just rock that's been compressed and also pressurized and heated up in order to kind of make this popcorn rock, and it's very easy to see that it's pretty light, and it also holds on to a lot of water because it's porous and it aerates the soil. All right, so I'm gonna add probably about 2 handfuls of that to this. And this is really safe, and it's also biodegradable and does a great job of keeping your soil aerated for a long time. Now the next thing you'll wanna do is add some nutrients to that soil. So when the seeds take off, they'll have some nutrients to grow. This is worm castings. Does anyone have a guess what this might be? Well, if you watched one of my other videos on composting, you'd know that worm castings are worm poop. Yay! And worm poop has a lot of nitrogen in it. So we don't need to add much of this to the soil mixture. Just like, literally just a little bit of a sprinkling right here. And that'll be plenty. You don't need much of that. And you can always add more over time if you see that your plants need more of it. And then the next thing you'll want to do is to give this a quick little turn around like this, so that things get mixed together and your soil components can get mixed in there. And now you can see that this soil actually looks like just like the soil you'd buy in a in a store bag for your garden. So basically you got your homemade soil compound right there. Now you can add some rocks and stuff to the bottom of this, but for this purpose I'm not going to, because I'm not too worried about the soil draining, because I added the perlite and also because the holes aren't too big and there's only 2 of them. So I'm going to just put the soil right in there so we can get going on planting. And you'll want to fill the container pretty full. You don't want to fill it so the soil is spilling out, but you don't want to fill it shallow because then the sunlight won't be able to get in there. Because as everyone probably knows, what are some things that plants need in order to grow? if you were thinking about sunlight, water, and also carbon dioxide, then you are correct. Those are the things that most plants need in order to grow. And the soil mixture provides all of those. All right, so that should be plenty. Now, when you're sowing the seeds, what you'll want to do is you'll want to just make a little row that they're going to go in. You can either do this by just running your finger along the soil and making a little kind of ditch right there, or a little indent, or you can just make individual indents with something of your choice. And so I am actually just going to allow the seeds to mix together in here and not worry about where they're going too much. You can get kind of detailed if you want to, but for this purpose, I'm not going to. And oftentimes on your seed packets, when you get them, they'll have specific instructions on what time of year to plant and also the location that they like to grow in. So if you're sowing them into the ground, these are things that you really want to pay attention to. But if you're sowing them into a pot or a container that you can move, you can always move them to the shade or a sunnier location if need be. All right. So that should be enough seeds in there. And you might have to thin out the seeds as they grow because they might be competing for nutrients too much. And you'll need to kind of thin them out if they get too close together. All right, now the next thing you want to do is to provide the plants with some water. So you want to spray them down really well with some water and make sure the soil gets nice and wet. Now you don't want your soil to be super saturated, but you do want it to be about the consistency of a run out sponge or cloth. And that should be good right now. And the next step after you do that is to put it into a location where it would get plenty of sun. And then of course you can always move it after the plants have started to grow. All right, well I hope you enjoyed that little demonstration on how to sow seeds directly into the soil, but also how to make your own soil from scratch. All right, join us next time for another episode of Mr. Myers and Minis, and happy gardening.